Welcome to episode 43 of the Frenemies podcast. It's our first ever virtual type of meeting. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, we're doing college football. Haven't done it in like 5-6 months, I think. We're going to do realignment. Jack, I think you probably have the most thoughts on this. We're going to take it to you first.
All right, so first off, let's find out the obvious here. Hunter's not here. Hope he's having a great time with where he's at. But let's get into it. Realignment, in my opinion, is changing for worse the game of college football because it's taking a collegiate sport and it's turning it into the NFL. It is, because you look at the Big Ten, they just bought out UCLA and USC. Now, USC and UCLA, they're saying they just joined the Big Ten. Fact of the matter is, they were making $35 million a season in the Pac-12. Teams like Northwestern, Purdue, Rutgers, Indiana, they're making $80, $85, $90 million in the Big Ten. This was no, I want to join the Big Ten. This was flat out a buyout. The Big Ten added 2 premier teams. Those 2 premier teams got paid. It's the same reason why Texas and Oklahoma are leaving the Big 12. They're going to the SEC, where in the SEC, Vanderbilt brought in more money than Texas and Oklahoma just because of their SEC rights. And what's going to happen is, eventually, I think the college football landscape is just going to twist into the SEC as your AFC and the Big Ten as your NFC. Every single big name team is going to join one of those conferences. I guarantee it. The best team outside of that conference will be Cincinnati in the Big 12.
So you think it's going to go down to
I think the ACC
and Big Ten?
It's going to be the SEC and the Big Ten because eventually Clemson's going to join the SEC for more money. And then at that point, the ACC is a joke because there's never been a team in the ACC that's really competed ever. I mean, give me a team in the ACC that's
in college football, but the problem with that is the ACC owns college basketball. I mean, it's the same thing.
But
you look at the Big East too. Like the Big East is nothing in football, but yet they're still there in collegiate basketball because they produce winners. Marquette, Seton Hall,
this has nothing to do with
UConn.
This is just strictly college football. Teams are going because you're going to make
USC and UCLA will be playing in the Big Ten for basketball.
They're going to be Big Ten basketball too, but they're joining the Big Ten primarily for football because the university is going to bring in a ton more money because of this.
Right, but I mean, even if you look at basketball, the Big 12, sorry, not the Big 12, the Pac-12 wasn't anything, and the Big 12 for that matter, but the Pac-12 wasn't anything special in basketball. So it's not like them leaving for football is them missing out on a bunch of stuff in basketball. Like that's
what I'm saying. That's why basketball doesn't matter. You think Clemson, they're going to give a shit what their basketball team does? I mean, no, they're going to take their football team. They're going to put them in the SEC, and they'll take their basketball team to the SEC too. They don't care. It's going to be more money because of the football team, and teams all around the country are going to do it. College football is king in collegiate sports, and it doesn't compare to college basketball.
Yes and no. I mean, March Madness. I mean, I guarantee you
that's
Duke
fine, but they don't.
North Carolina.
They don't bring in the money that college football.
The revenue in college football.
The revenue's not close. Is March Madness better in some aspects? Absolutely. Does it bring in the revenue?
No, I get that. But the revenue market for those Duke, North Carolina, those blue bloods in the ACC will always be there in basketball, and Duke is not going to make enough money football wise going to the SEC.
No, you're
in my opinion.
Right, Carter, you're completely right.
Only
the notable teams are going to join the SEC and the Big Ten. If you're a team like Duke, if you're a team like
if you're saying the two main okay. I get what you're saying. So you're saying the two main conferences.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, gotcha. I agree. I hate to see it. That's why I was clapping in the beginning because there's some things about collegiate sports that I feel like should stay at the collegiate sport level that makes it better than the pros or different than the pros.
Well, and I think that's everything wrong with college football right now. It just they're taking a collegiate sport and they're professionalizing it. They did it when they expanded the playoffs. They did it when they added, now they're doing it with conference realignment. And it's just going to continue to spiral. And now, obviously, there's name, image, and likeness, which is a benefit because players get to be paid. But let's be real here. A lot of name, image, and likeness is just big-name schools paying their players to go play there. I mean, Ohio State's paying over $1 million to keep their roster intact. And Texas A&M, they're just straight up telling recruits, come here, you're going to get paid.
Yeah, that video is trending on TikTok.
Right. If anything of the – anything that doesn't bother me the most about the professionalizing of the collegiate sports, it's definitely the NIL deals, because I feel like that's exploiting. Like, I mean, you just said it. Purdue made $80 million and the players touched nothing last year. Like, that's the one thing. But I do agree with Jack. There's a lot of, especially with this conference realignment, there's a lot of professionalism, and it doesn't really make sense for USC or UCLA. It's not like they're like super close and proximity to all these other schools, like area wise, less travel or whatever. Like, it's just blatantly money. It's just blatantly money.
And that's the issue. It's not even name, image, and likeness is the issue, because it's like, in the grand scheme of things, you're paying a college player a lot of money, but it's not an enormous sum of money compared to the NFL. The issue is money otherwise. The college football playoff, it didn't expand to create a better playoff. It didn't expand to create anything more exciting. It simply expanded because it made more money for the suits. And that's the exact same reason why they're looking to expand the playoffs. It's more games, it's more revenue. And it's the exact same reason they're taking conference schools like USC and UCLA out on the West Coast, and they're putting them in a northeastern conference. None of this has anything to do with football. None of this has anything to do with excitement or passion. It's just strictly money. And does it make sense to make as much money as possible? Yes, but it's going to ruin the integrity of the sport. Not even the integrity. It's just going to ruin college football in general, because you're going to have 2 mega conferences with every team in it. The only powerhouse team that might not be in a mega conference would be Notre Dame. And Notre Dame wouldn't join a mega conference because they got the buyout deal with MSNBC, or not MSNBC, NBC. Yeah. And they're making they're making close to 80, 90, $100 million off that a season just from a TV deal. So they got no reason to join a conference when they can stay independent and pick their own schedule.
I guess the only thing I would disagree with you, I think there's a way where there'll be 3 like big conferences, and then it'll be 2 sub conferences per those 3 conferences. So basically like 6, like subdivisions. So 3 conferences, 6 divisions. So about like those teams we don't do like
again, but that's similar to the NFL, like 6 divisions. Like again, you're breaking it up by divisions. They keep professionalizing it.
I think the thing that makes me the most angry about the entire situation is the fact that it's not like a Notre Dame or like a Cincinnati situation where they've been going undefeated for years and not getting recognition from the playoff committee that they deserve to be in, and they're not being put in. If USC goes undefeated and they're the Pac-12 champs,
playoffs.
Or Pac-10, yeah, they're in the playoffs. Same with UCLA. We saw with Oregon already in the first inaugural playoff run. Like, it just doesn't, from that perspective.
Oregon was a 1-loss team in that playoff too.
Exactly. So it's not like
it's not like a UCF where they went undefeated.
Right, exactly.
They didn't get that chance to compete for a national championship. If they then left and joined a real conference, that's a completely different story. That's college football.
100% agree.
This is just how much money can we bring in for our program? Which again, that's what you're supposed to do if you're a student, but it's going to ruin college football.
Right.
Now, speaking of ruining, I do want to talk about this because I think this is important. I think Texas and Oklahoma just ruined their franchises, or not their franchises, their programs for years. Texas has no chance to compete in the SEC. Oklahoma, maybe because of how historic that program is. They always bring in great recruiting classes, and Brent Venables is one of the best defensive minds, maybe in the history of college football. They'll have a chance. Steve Sarkisian with that Texas roster, no chance, especially when you're going to be recruiting up against Kirby Smart, Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban. I'm sorry, Texas is going to be in the ruins. They got no shot going forward in the future. Maybe this year because they're still in the Big 12 and they got Quinn Ewers, Bijan Robinson. Going forward, though, when they get to the SEC, I don't know what happens to Texas.
I think Quinn Ewers just hit the transfer portal today. I read a thing about that because the only thing that gives me hope for Texas is Arch Manning.
Wait, are you being Quinn Ewers didn't transfer today?
No, I don't think he transferred today. I think he hit the transfer portal, or he was planning to. At least I saw something like that. It may have been a fake account or whatever, but I swear he was going the transfer portal after, or thinking, at least considering it after Arch committed, because the kid's one of the first 1.0s I've ever seen. And kids are going to go play with him.
Carter, Quinn Ewers is not in the transfer portal. Quinn's going to play this year, and then Arch Manning's going to play his senior year. And then it'll go Quinn again, they'll redshirt Arch, and then Arch will play. Because Arch
then I don't know where I
has,
saw that. I apologize for that.
Manning still has his senior year of high school before he gets to Texas.
That's true. He gives me hope though because people college or going into college kids, they'll go play with him. But I think it's the defensive problems first. Like, I don't know about you.
They got.
They don't
the
play
Big 12,
defense.
their defense was atrocious.
They don't play defense. As a conference in general, that they don't play defense at all, like at all. And so,
when we have the Texas, Alabama, that's week 2. I'm pretty sure it's one of the biggest openings in college football this year. Alabama with Bryce Young, they might put up 70.
Well,
they're going to score every single possession, and a lot of them they're going to score in like 50, 60-yard drives.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. Like unless like what you said with Brett, if they figure it out defensively just because he's a genius, they could be okay. I think they're going to struggle recruiting, especially in like the southern parts of the country where a lot of the talent is, and now what they're going up against. But Texas has got to figure it out defensively.
Not only they got to figure it out defensively, they got to figure it out recruiting wise. Texas is
right. Getting players to play defense.
Right, and Texas is one of Ohio State's biggest pipelines, and Ohio State's as far north as you go for college football. And on top of that, if you're a Texas athlete, I don't care if you've grown up a Texas fan. If you're a Texas athlete, you're a 5-star athlete, and Steve Sarkisian walks up to you, offers you a full ride and a Texas NIL deal. And then Nick Saban walks up to you and offers you a full ride and an NIL deal. It's not even a debate where you're going. You're going to play for the NFL factory. You're going to go play for the greatest coach ever, and you're going to guarantee yourself a national championship. At Texas, you don't guarantee yourself a single thing.
All right.
Do you think like the glamour of them joining the SEC would even help a little bit with the recruiting?
Not even a little bit, because if they start,
at least you can promote that you're going to be.
It'll help
CBS
in the North
every single week, playing some of the best teams around, and you'll be able to show, even if your team's not good, you'll be able to show against the best recruits and other best players that you're that good.
You're saying Texas?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. So Texas has got to be one of the most hated college football programs out there right now. That no one likes Texas because it's always Texas is back. Every rivalry game, horns down. If Texas goes to the SEC and they struggle, all of the national media is going to compare them to Vanderbilt. And who the hell wants to go play at Vanderbilt?
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think they'll benefit in the northern regions of the country. But I mean, if you look at like where a lot of the high school football talent's coming from, it's Texas, Florida, Georgia, Ohio, California, states like that. There's not a lot of, not saying there isn't or can't be, but there's not a lot of 5-star, 4-star guys coming out of the Dakotas or Montana. And I think it's a transitioning over to the USC, UCLA. They're going into the Western Division in the Big Ten, right? So they'll be competing with teams like Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota. I think there will be an adjustment period for them as well, because I just think the Big Ten up front is the most physical. I don't think it's as fast as the SEC, but I think it's the most physically we're going to just pound it down the throats. Yeah, exactly. Win in the trenches type thing. And I don't think the Pac-10 is like that at all.
I agree with you. And then on top of that, like we're talking about realignment of conferences, realignment of teams. This is going to be a realignment of play style and a realignment of recruiting. Because now you look at it, if you're a Western guy and you're a Western recruit and you're deciding between a USC maybe, your judgment might be influenced to switch from USC to Oregon because you don't want to travel from Southern California to Wisconsin, back to Southern California, to New Jersey, back to Southern California, to say then in Indiana or in Ohio or in Michigan. I mean, that's going to play a talent, like that's going to play on recruits. You know, they're going to look at that and they're going to be like, do I really want to go across the country every single week to play football and to have like these 5-6 hour flights every single time to play a conference game? And then on top of that, then you look at like these Western recruits. Hey, do I want to go to the Big Ten? If I go to USC, UCLA, I'm already in the Big Ten. But now if I take a Big Ten team that's already in the Northeast, I don't got to travel back and forth across the country every single time I want to play football.
Yeah, the other thing that makes me sick is I see all these Big Ten fans say, you know, USC isn't beating Purdue or UCLA isn't beating Northwestern. And as much as that USC and UCLA aren't going to be destroying some of these teams. I don't know if that's the same way you guys feel, but
I think they're more competitive because Lincoln Riley, for example, Big 12 his entire career, he's never played a Northwestern or a Purdue. Like they play completely different brands of football, and that's brands of football Lincoln Riley's never seen before. Lincoln Riley in his career, he's never had a defense. Like the man does not coach defense. He will not implement a defense. He's not going to add one at USC. I mean, he just added Bryson Shaw to his secondary out of the transfer portal. I might be biased because I'm a Buckeyes fan. Bryson Shaw is one of the worst safeties I've ever seen in my entire life in college football. I mean, if you're a Browns fan out there, you know who Andrew Sendejo is. Bryson Shaw is the Andrew Sendejo of college football. He's atrocious. So that guy is going to be the signal caller for USC defense. I'm sorry. It's going to be pathetic. Purdue and Northwestern, most games they win them like 17-16.
Yeah.
They'll put up 35, 40 points on a Lincoln Riley offense, and then Lincoln Riley doesn't see a defense like that because, you know, if they actually play defense, on top of that, they produce players. Northwestern's, they're out here, they're putting out defenders every single year. They just put out Greg Newsome, and then Purdue, they just put out George Karlaftis, the defensive end. Every single year, these Big Ten teams, they put people out there into the NFL draft, and people never give the Big Ten credit for being a draft factory, but they are. They're almost as equal to the SEC when it comes to draft production.
Don't you think it works both ways though? Like
right, they've never
Big
seen
10 teams have never seen an offense like Lincoln Riley on a week-to-week basis. Like Purdue's never seen a Lincoln Riley offense.
Oh, completely agree.
I think it'll work both ways.
It will.
And just to play devil's advocate, I'm sure you guys, you're both extremely against it. So am I, but I don't think like as much as you two. Is it not going to be cool watching like Ohio State play USC on like week 5? Or seeing Alabama and Oklahoma or Alabama and Texas on like a week 8 in the middle of the season?
I think it's cool every like 10 years, but I don't think it's cool because like you think of Ohio State USC, you think of Rose Bowl, you think of tradition because college football is the most tradition sport out there. So I don't like the idea of just throwing away all this tradition. So what makes the sport great. It's why it's got the best fans probably in the world.
But wouldn't you say it also? But it's going to increase competition too.
It might, but I also, to some level, I think it'll destroy it out a little bit because now if you're a recruit, you have to go to a top school if you want to compete.
It'll definitely.
I'm just saying, like game to game basis, I think it's gonna be extremely competitive. Week to week for teams.
I mean, I think it's already competitive. I don't think.
Well, like when Ohio State faces like
in conference,
63-0.
Right. I think in conference it'll be a lot more competitive, but I think in the sense of non-conference games, I don't think you're going to see, you know, Ohio State loading up their schedule necessarily anymore.
Oh no.
Well, they are, but here's the thing: they already did. They got Notre Dame twice. They got Alabama coming up in 27-28. They got Georgia coming up. They got Texas too. I mean, a lot of these schools are now adding big name schools to the beginning of their schedule. I don't think the conference realignment is not that important. Big schools are playing big schools early in the season now, and you don't need to do it to like ruin your conference play, and you can still see them later in the bowl game.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you guys this: ranking the SEC when Oklahoma and Texas come in, where do they fall? They middle of the pack. Like, give me numbers here. You got Alabama and Georgia at the top. Are Texas and Oklahoma right there after them, or
Texas absolutely not. They just went 6-6 in the Big 12. If you put that Texas team in the SEC last year, they go 3-9 or 4-8.
Okay, so they're
bottom. No.
are they
I think I would
are
have.
they better than Vanderbilt?
Just to tell you how bad I think Texas will be joining the SEC, I have Vanderbilt at dead last, and I always will. Other than that, I think Texas might be the second worst team in the SEC.
You have them worse.
I'd take Arkansas. I'd take Florida.
Mississippi
I know,
State.
I'd take Mississippi State, Ole Miss. I would not take Missouri. I'd put Texas over Missouri too. I think that's it.
That's big of you.
I don't think I'd go any higher. Oklahoma.
What about
I would
Oklahoma?
have Oklahoma. I'd have around them in between Ole Miss and Mississippi State.
LSU.
LSU's with Brian Kelly. I know a lot of people hate the Brian Kelly hire. I love it. I think LSU's now going to contend for years. I got LSU as the third best team in the SEC.
Oh.
Interesting.
What about you,
Kelly
Jake?
can coach. Brian Kelly can coach.
He also killed the man.
He did kill a man, but he can coach. Angel Hernandez killed a man, and he could play tight end. O.J. Simpson killed a few people, and he was a damn good running back. Not supposed to.
What about you? You agree with that, Jake?
Repeat the question. Sorry. OJ's down my mind now.
His rankings of Oklahoma and Texas. You agree with that?
I don't know. Yeah, I would say it's pretty accurate. I'd put Texas a little bit higher.
So
I think Jack's a little bit. He's a little bit too low on Texas, but
So-
I can understand why.
Well, I mean, they went 6-6 in the Big 12. They lost to Kansas.
No. I understand,
Well,
but I would have
Not
Texas.
only did they lose to Kansas, they gave up 50 to Kansas.
Okay, now I'm really interested to see about this. Where do you guys put USC and UCLA?
USC is up there. Like, it's Ohio State's conference.
Are they better than
Wisconsin? I would.
Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, Michigan.
Are they better? Is US? We'll do this. I think because I think UCLA isn't better than any of the top schools I'm about to name. Like I think UCLA will be better than Rutgers,
Yes.
Purdue,
Yes.
Maryland,
Yes.
and then they'll be I think they finish above Northwestern.
Northwestern's a weird team because with Pat Fitzgerald, it's either they go 6-6 or they go like 9-3 and make the Big Ten championship.
No, they're very much a school. Like if they have, I think it's like every 3 to 4 years.
It's almost every other year because they won Big Ten championship, like 6-6, and then Big Ten championship.
No, that's true. Well, we'll give them.
And Michigan State, I don't even know if that. Like I could see UCLA being like a Michigan State. And
Well, that's all. I almost feel like that's disrespectful to Michigan State. They were phenomenal last year.
Yeah, that's fair.
The new head coach,
Mel Tucker.
Yeah,
Mel Tucker. That was year one for Mel Tucker. He did
That's true. That's true.
I thought some people put Michigan State as the second best team in the Big Ten.
I think they are because you'd think Michigan would be up there after their playoff appearance, but they lost Ojabo, they lost Chase Hutchinson, and right now their recruiting class is the worst in the Big Ten. They're not bringing in any talent, and they're losing a lot of it to the transfer portal too. Because I think you're gonna have J.J. McCarthy as your starting quarterback this year. That's not great. I think they got Blake Corum back. He's one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. That's your strong suit if you're Michigan. But you lost 2 first-rounders on defense. I know Ojabo didn't go round one. That was the injury. No injury. Ojabo's a first-round pick. Michigan's going to struggle big time this year, I think. Like, this is a major regression year for Michigan. Because if you're not coming in off a playoff appearance hot, you're going to struggle. Because, they made the playoffs, and they can't recruit anyone to save their life. Illinois has a better recruiting class than Michigan right now.
Right. No, it's not. So back to what I was saying. Do you take?
I would put USC into tier 2.
And then I would put
High tier
UCLA bottom of tier 1. Because UCLA is going to have an offense. USC. I'm sorry. USC is going to be the bottom of tier 1.
Okay.
Because they're going to have an offense, but I don't think that offense is going to hold when it's 30 degrees in Ann Arbor or East Lansing.
So, do you think they're better than Wisconsin?
I honestly don't know. I don't think I'd have them better than Wisconsin right
That's why they're in my tier 2. Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Michigan State would be my first 4. Tier 1. Tier 2 would be your USC, your Michigan, your Minnesota.
Yeah,
Minnesota's weird to me.
because you got PJ Fleck in Minnesota. He always does a good job. They always get NFL talent too, like Antoine Winfield. Who's a wide receiver I'm thinking of? Plays for the Buccaneers. They got some. They always have NFL talent somewhere. Oh, Muhammad Ibrahim would have probably been a NFL draft pick if he didn't rupture his Achilles in the first game of the year.
Yeah.
What about you, Carter?
I don't know, man. I could see, just because I feel like they're going to get a lot of recruits, I think USC is going to be the second best team in the Big Ten for a while.
I think they'll get there. I just don't have them like I'm talking about next year. But I would. That's
away.
a great point. USC, what's now the glamour they have of the Big Ten. You're going to face all these top schools and top coaches. You get all this exposure with Fox. I think like USC's recruiting, they may just own all of California now. Especially if the Pac-12 is most likely going to fold. USC is in for a very bright future.
Right. I 100% agree. And I don't know. Because I don't know how I feel about that in the sense of the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry as well. Because if all of a sudden, USC, Ohio State for the Big Ten.
That'll never compare to the game. That'll never compare.
Think about it, Jack, though. That could be the Big Ten title game for 5-6 years in a row at certain points.
It could be, but it'll never. A lot of people don't understand how deep the game roots is because it's over a war.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm just saying it's like the same thing with like new generations, like favorite players, like what you're growing up with.
I can see that.
Becomes your favorite thing.
I think to compare a potential Ohio State USC rivalry years down the road to arguably the greatest rivalry in the history of sports.
That's fair. Maybe that's a step far, but like I could see it easily being the second biggest game in the Big Ten every year.
Oh, I think it will be. Lincoln Riley versus Ryan Day. No, it will be. I can't think of a second bigger game. It'll be the game. The game will always be the game of the year in the Big Ten. And then after that, I think it is. Actually, no. It might be. I think because USC and Penn State, I think those two are much closer on the tier list right now than Ohio State and USC are. Could you imagine Lincoln Riley bringing the troops up to Happy Valley for the whiteout? Tell me that wouldn't be sick. Because he's already coaching the Red River Showdown, OU versus Texas. Give me Lincoln Riley and Penn State at the whiteout, because that would be the greatest environment he's ever coached in. That would be just electric.
Yeah.
I guess this puts this to the question. Do you think they'll rearrange the divisions now if they keep adding teams? Because I feel like at some point, as these conferences keep accumulating teams, there's going to be divisions going to be rearranged based on either proximity or like talent level. So you think Michigan will go on a different side then?
I think they'll get rid of divisions altogether once it becomes super conference.
And then just have your two top teams
will play out for it. Because I think what's eventually going to happen, what college football wants to do is I think they want to expand either the regular season or the college football playoff. I think that's eventually what's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to work.
I think it will too, and I think the solution is as you get these freakishly good, massive conferences, the need for non-conference games leaves, especially with more slots in the playoffs to fill. So they just get rid of non-conference games and expand to 8 teams. But now every good team is a part of a conference, and then you leave a spot for your A10s, your max, whatever conference you want to think of.
Here's the issue with that is the NCAA has got to be very, very careful here because the collegiate programs, they will never allow college athletes just to get paid from a college. That will never happen. They got to be careful because if you're a top athlete and, if it's a 2-game playoff like it is now, no one's holding out of that. You want to win a national championship. If they add up to 3 games, 4 games, maybe a 5th game, like a conference championship and then 4 games to follow it, I guarantee you a lot of high-name players would sit out because they're not going to risk multi-million-dollar contracts in the NFL, guaranteed money, for a playoff game or two. So you got to keep it. You got to keep it at 1 or 2 max. You can't expand it.
I don't necessarily.
These top players aren't going to play if they're getting NIL deals. They're still going to get paid, and then if they got an injury in the playoff game, their NIL deal gets pulled like that. They don't got any money, and then they drop multiple rounds of the draft. They're losing millions of dollars. So you got to. Right now, you have to keep it as small as possible.
But then why play at all? Like that doesn't make sense.
No, it does make sense because if you're not playing at all, you're not going to get drafted. You have to play to get a stock, and at the end of the season, an extra game or two isn't going to improve or drop your stock so significantly if you're already
right. That's why
these players will play in the playoffs, though.
That's why
players have not played in bowl games before because again, they don't see bowl games as important and prestigious as you do, Jackson. But they will play for the playoffs.
I don't think that's true. Not if it's a 3 or 4 game playoffs. I don't think they do.
They will not get out of a playoff.
They would if it's 3 or 4 games.
Then you can even boost your draft. If you perform well in the playoffs, you can boost your drafts. You can boost your draft stock. It could work both ways.
I agree with that. It's like if you're like a projected 3rd, 2nd, or 4th round pick, I think you play. But if you're locked away, like if you're a top prospect and you're projected top 5, top 10 pick going into the playoffs, you have no reason to play. You have a $20 to $40 million contract sitting for you in the NFL. You're not going to risk 4 games to get that taken away from you. You're just not, especially if you're getting paid by the NIL. There's no shot. If you add it to 3 or 4 games, these players are going to play.
But if you're removing non-conference games and playing the same amount of games total in a season, they're playing that game. Like they're playing that game. Devontae Smith was the clear number 1 receiver going into the playoffs last year. The clear number 1 receiver, not last year.
Right, but Carter, that's only 2 games. It's only 2 games. If you make it 3 or 4, players aren't going to play 4 games and risk their 1st round pick money. They're just not.
Yes, if they're not playing within their non-conference. Did Alabama play non-conference games last year? Yes. So if you would have added a playoff onto that with the non-conference games, then I understand because that's a lot of games. That's more than an NFL season in some circumstances. But if you're taking those non-conference away, now the only problem I see is for the conferences like the MAC and the A10 who aren't going to have perennial playoff contenders. They're playing less games all of a sudden because there's no non-conference games to be played anymore. I think
the MAC and the A10 would still those would still exist because they're not leaving to go anywhere.
No, I know. I'm saying
he's saying they would have no one to play in the non-conference schedule.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. So you have 3, 4 non-conference games, 5, something like that. You take all those away for the playoffs.
You don't have to take all of them. Just take 2 away, and you can add those 2 to the back end of the season.
I think you got to go beginning of the season. You can't put non-conference end of the season.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, so right now teams play 4 non-conference games?
Yes, 4 to 5.
Okay.
Depends if you're SEC or
you half that. You only play 2, 10-game season, and then those 2 games you took away are then added to the playoff. So then at max, you're still only playing 14 games.
No, then that I understand. But I'm saying if going into the playoffs, if you're a projected top 10 pick, top 20 pick, I don't think you're risking
even with
that's where I disagree.
Even without the non-conference games?
In the beginning of the season, you're not a projected 1st round pick. You need to prove that you are to start the year. You have to. At the end of the year,
you're playing the same amount of games.
I understand that, but the games are more important for an NFL prospect in the beginning of the season, so you need to prove that they're a 1st round pick. If they play the 12 games and they finish the 12 games, you have it's much easier to grade a player after 12 games than it is after 4.
Okay, players, they sat out of bowl games. Players, like especially young players, don't understand the prestige that these.
No, they understand that they have millions of dollars.
They do understand the college football playoff and the rivalry and the. I think players would want to play in the college football playoff.
They want to play for something that means
exactly
legacy.
If they still have a chance at winning the trophy and boosting up the draft stock that much, you see like a Georgia this year with them winning the national title. You see the amount of Georgia defensive players that got drafted.
They were going to get drafted anyways,
but not that high.
Yes, they were.
You don't think the championship helped? You don't think the championship helped at all?
But part of it's legacy too.
I don't disagree with that, Carter. I don't disagree with that. But
players don't want to.
But you're sitting in a meeting with an agent, and you're talking about to your agent, "Hey, I want to play for the legacy." And your agent's going to bring up the point, You want to play for legacy, or you want to pay for $30 million and your family's never got to work a day in their life again? You're taking the $30 million.
Right. But Devontae Smith, who was playing for a championship, played.
Carter, because it was only two games. It was only 2 games.
But then, Jack, that's validating my argument because I'm saying
It
you
is
play
an
the same.
argument if
You
it's a 4-game
play the
playoff.
same
Players
game
aren't going to play an extra
anyway.
4 games if they know they're a top.
It's not an extra 4 games. It's not an extra. It's the same.
If it's only 2, I think you're right. No, then they all play.
Dude, we're playing the same amount of games. We're going off the standpoint of we take 2 non-conference games out.
Here's the season. Here's the season.
I'm saying I don't know because that's where my issue is. You're saying you take 2 non-conference games out and you expand the playoffs and you have more playoff games. I still think players sit out even those same number of games because after 12 games, it's much easier to grade and evaluate a player and have an understanding where you're going to go in the draft. Now, because in the beginning of the year, when you're 4 games in, no one knows where you're going. Anything can happen. I mean, Sam Howell's projected to be the first pick in the draft, and he ended up 5th to the Commanders. It changes. If you're going to play a full season and you're a projected first-round pick after the full season, before the postseason, I'm sorry. If you got $30 million on the table, I have a very hard time believing that you're going to go out and play another 4 games with 0 money guaranteed. I just have a hard time believing that.
4 guaranteed games. And also, it's like
you just
players,
played 4 playoff games.
That's if you win.
Right.
That's if they win in advance. Because I'm just saying these players, at the end of the day, they are competitive people. And they want to play in these games.
It's just not true.
Bowl games is differently.
No,
these players, Jackson, these players didn't want to play in the Pennzoil Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl, but they're going to want to play in the national championship.
Because none of those players are going to be first-round picks in the Cheez-It Bowl. They're going to be first-round picks playing in the playoffs. If your team gets to the playoffs, you're going to have first-round picks on that roster.
Jackson, there's still good players playing the lower bowl games.
Right, but that's because
they're
players with 5th-round picks are trying to.
The player from Notre Dame that sat out in that bowl game, it's different because they don't care. They didn't care that it was a bowl game because they were in the national championship. These players playing, they have a shot at the national championship.
If you're playing 4 bowl games without a single dollar,
if players have a chance to win a national championship. If a player has a chance to win a national championship, they will play that game.
That's where
players before would sit out because they know they didn't give 2 shits about playing the Peach Bowl when they know they had no chance of winning the national championship.
No, and I agree with that, but I think it's only because it's a 2-game playoff. If you add 4 games,
it's only 3 games. It's 3 games.
Especially with the guys.
No, you said 4.
Especially with the guys.
We've been saying it's an 18 playoff. Let's make it 3 games.
Especially with guys that are going to be drafted high are going to be getting paid absurdly with NIL, right?
I mean, so the most they can make is a couple million at max. You're talking $30 to $40 million in the NFL.
I mean, yeah, but yes and no. Like rookies
aren't. Not yes and no. That's $30 to $40 million difference
off the draft. No, it's not.
Yes, it is. A first round pick makes, I think, $38 million total. It might be 48. 38, 48.
Is there a quarterback? Maybe?
No, if you're the first pick in the draft, that's how much you make, regardless of position.
Jack, this has been going on like for years. Why do you think suddenly by adding one game to win a national championship is going to change everything? Right. That's where I'm struggling to understand.
I think it will significantly change it.
How? Adding just one more game. Because players have been having this little dilemma for the past 10 years. And we still haven't had this absurd amount of players dropping out and not playing the game.
You hear more players upset that they didn't get a chance to compete for a national title. You look at the 2000
to be fair,
Miami Hurricanes who beat Florida State.
You can't talk about not being fair. Hold on. You can't talk about not being fair to compete for national championship. They had their chance. Win out in the regular season and you get to compete for a national championship. Do your job, you can compete for a national championship. Sorry, you lost, and we now need to expand it to give you a better chance. If you want to compete for national championship,
I honestly think adding a game is actually going to have less. Now there's going to be less players leaving.
Because I think the more you expand the playoffs, the less bowl games matter.
If you think about
already, a lot of these players don't give shits about the bowl game they're playing in, especially the
right.
And that's because all prestige was lost to bowl games in 2014.
If you think about,
we got to move forward.
If you think,
all you're doing is making it. You're professionalizing the collegiate sport. If you continue to expand playoffs, you're just going to continue to professionalize it. Because in the regular season, again, it's going to mean less when you can lose
Wrong.
a game. No, not wrong. If you can lose a game, it makes it a less competitive
Jackson, we've had this
season.
discussion before. I mean, I'm going to tell you the same exact thing. If you're a player and you know that once you lose, you're out. Once you lose week 2, what the hell is playing? Why does it matter to play after week 2? You already know you're out of the playoff.
Well, first off, you still got to play to compete for a draft spot in week 2. You still got to play and play as best you can.
Then you're just playing for yourself. You're not playing for the team, which is the whole point of college.
Not to mention, in the BCS era, there have been one-loss teams in the national championship.
So they at least 2 games.
Okay, let's use
There's nothing to play for now.
Let's use that for a great example. It's 2000 Miami Hurricanes football. They're coming back. They're under Butch Davis. They go out in week 2 and lay a goose egg and lose to Washington University. They then go out. They beat the number 1 Florida State Seminoles. They then go on a back-to-back, beat the number 2 Virginia Tech Hokies. Hokies, is that how you pronounce it? Hokies.
The guy that can't pronounce Hokies is going to tell me what's wrong with the playoffs.
With Mike Vick at quarterback. Guess who made the playoffs over them? Doodle Machine. Guess who made the playoffs over the Hurricanes?
In 2002?
No, in 2000.
2000.
Oh, in 2000?
They had to play
Oklahoma?
They had to play the Gators in the Sugar Bowl. No, Oklahoma was number 1. Who should they have played? Oklahoma was undefeated, deserving of that top spot. Who should have been number 2? Guess who was?
Was it LSU?
No, wasn't it the team they beat?
Nope, it was the team they beat. It was Florida State. Florida State made it in over Miami, even though Miami beat Florida State, and that's the problem I'm having. That's why
fine.
the playoffs is so necessary.
You can't just keep expanding and expanding.
No, I'm not
saying
we're not just to 8.
No, because we said we were gonna cut it at 4, and now we're gonna go to 8. Now we're gonna cut it at 8. Then it's gonna go to 16. Then the entire collegiate football landscape is gonna compete for.
How the hell did we get to college at the 18 playoff anyway?
We might still not get to an 18 playoff.
Well, I'm just saying, how the hell did we start talking about this?
What do you mean?
You brought it up. Yeah.
I brought it up with the relocate. I don't know. We talked about expansion. We'll watch that.
For me,
I think players, if they have guaranteed millions of dollars, and you're telling them to play another game,
will you lose maybe a couple?
For me,
you're not going to lose these tremendous amount of players. I honestly think, Jackson, adding to 8 teams is actually going to decrease the amount of players that are going to leave early and not play in their bowl game.
For me, it's very simple.
Because you're adding another important game for them to play in the playoff for a thing that they care about. Like,
right.
Let's 100%. Say you're on the fifth seed. All right. Let's say USC. They're the number 5 team in the country. In a 14 playoff, they're not going to be in, so they're going to be they're in the Sugar Bowl. But they're in a Sugar Bowl where you can't compete for the national title. You know what? I'm not going to play because I don't have a chance at the national title. Or, different scenario, 18 playoff. I'm still at same 5, the 15 in the country. Wait, I'm in the playoff. I'm going to play in this game because I still have a chance at the national title. So instead, he plays in an 18 playoff.
I think that's a great analogy. I think it'd be great if it always works like that, but it never will. We'll always work to that perfection.
Why?
Because it's a perfect analogy. Perfect analogies don't always work.
I was just giving you an example why an 18 playoff would actually limit the amount of players that leave.
Here's why it works.
But that's not what my argument. Hold on. Because honestly, I understand.
You said that expanding the playoff is going to have more players leave the draft early and not play.
If you play more games in the playoffs, yes.
You not just listen to the scenario.
I did listen to the scenario, but again, it's just straight up a scenario. My issue isn't players sitting out one game. My issue is keeping college football the best sport in the world. And by expanding the playoff, you lose the best regular season in all of sports. Because every single game is like a national championship in the regular season.
That's where I disagree with.
How do you disagree with that? You have to win every.
I know, Jackson. But once you lose, then boom, gone.
But
your aspirations disappeared.
It is.
You just said you have to go undefeated. You have to go undefeated in the regular season.
Not in the 14 playoff.
Pretty damn close, though.
Not even.
You have to go undefeated or lose one. Basically.
And
that's not hard to do in college football.
And where there's 150, there's 152 Division I schools.
Why expand 4.
So then why expand it to the teams that cannot do that? Why give it
Jackson,
to the
your regular season argument makes me so pissed off.
How? It's the
It's
best
just
regular
wrong.
season in sports.
Because
and it
once
always has been.
you lose, let's say you go a 2-2 start, and then you go like you win an
What college team is going 2-2 and then winning the next 10?
Here's the problem, Jack. Here's the problem, Jack.
Show me one example.
Especially now with the conference becoming tougher, you could definitely lose early. You're a good team. Once you lose early, these players are just going to give up. Like we have nothing to play for.
That's not true.
We're 2-2.
They have their
In the
draft
NFL, we go
stock to
2-2.
They have their
It's
draft
fine.
stock to play for.
That's
my point. You're professionalizing a collegiate sport.
Here's the
Okay,
problem,
that's a different
Jack.
argument, Jack.
Here's the
You're
problem,
using
Jack.
different
Just
arguments.
compared to college football to the NFL.
Professionalizing sports is a different
that's
thing.
not what
My
we were
only thing I'm arguing is that your stupid little regular season take makes you so angry.
How does that make you angry? It's the best regular season.
It's also not
Jackson,
fair. It's
Jackson.
also not fair. It's also not fair. If we
Going
think about it
into
that
the
way.
college football
It's
season-
not fair, Carter. What's not fair about that?
How many? Do you know how?
Win
Do you know,
your games if you want it to be fair.
wait, do you know how many Division 1 schools there are? 150,
126.
152.
152. I was off by 26.
Okay. So if you take 4 teams out of that 152, that's 2%, okay, of the entire college football in Division 1.
Okay.
If you take 8 teams, it's 5%. Okay? My point exactly is there's no way that 152 teams can all play each other to find out who the best is, right?
Yeah.
That's what's different with the NBA and the MLB and the
Carter,
NFL.
of those 152 teams, 142 of them will not compete for national championship before the season even starts.
That's why.
See, but the problem is you tell that to UCF and they lose their minds, right? So, but that's true.
Sorry, I don't care about UCF's feelings.
You only care about.
I mean,
you don't care about the bad teams.
Well, yes, if you're a good team,
You only care about the top 1%.
and that's
Yes,
the
because
problem, Jack. And that's the problem, Jack. Do we look at the New York Jets?
Magic. It's not the magical run.
If you made yourself in the top 1% of the season, and if you're one of the top 1%,
Do we
the best chance to win a
look?
national championship.
Do we look at the New York Jets and go, "There's no shot you're winning the
I
Super
don't,
Bowl"?
I
You're
don't
not
understand
playing?
why we're talking about the NFL when my whole argument
We're
is
talking about
fairness.
fairness. Okay, so we say, okay,
Fairness is not okay. Fairness is not saying you lost more games. Let's make it easier for you to compete for a national championship. That's not fairness. Fairness is you're the
How
best
is it
team.
easier?
You compete for a national championship.
That doesn't make sense because according to you,
How the hell does
Alabama.
that not make sense?
Because according to you, Alabama will just murder everyone anyway. So what does it matter? What does it matter if the top teams are that elite that the bottom teams don't even have a chance? What does it matter if we?
If you're a top team in the regular season, you should be a top team in the postseason.
You will be. And what does it matter if you play a small team?
So
if you're just
one of the
destroy
worst
them?
teams, you don't deserve to compete for a national championship. It's that simple.
But according to you, the difference between the top and the between 1 and 8 is so big that
because Oklahoma State finished top 8. They're never going to compete.
So why play the regular season? Why play the most important regular season if you know the Final Four already? You tell me why the greatest regular season on earth. Yeah, we already know that. We already know the ending. It's gonna be the same 4 teams.
It's never the same.
You just said it's the same 4 teams. The gap's so big.
Every few years it's
That's my problem. And the other problem is going back to
the problem is penalizing the best team. No, that's your problem.
How is that penalizing?
My issue with you, Jackson, is that you keep talking about this greatest regular season that we know. At the end of the day, basically the same 4 teams are going to be the 4 best teams in the
and that's why it makes the upset so great, because anytime a team upsets them, it drastically derails their national title hopes.
Sure, yeah, upsets, sure,
amazing
for college football, one of the greatest parts. But I'm just saying, as I'm rooting for a team. Let's say I'm rooting for good old Wisconsin. We're feeling good. We lose a tough game against Ohio State. Basically, our season's basically done. Unless we go on this great run and we destroy teams.
No, if you're Wisconsin and your only loss is Ohio State, you probably make the playoffs.
You're not making it to Ohio State.
I mean, if you think
you're not going to make it over an FCC team,
if you think about the
Pac-12 team and a Big 12 team.
Right. I mean, if you think about the year we won, if we don't beat Wisconsin 59-0, we don't make the college football playoffs.
Right,
if we beat
Ohio State had third string quarterback starting that game. Of course, you need to dominate. No one wants to see a third string quarterback starting against Alabama.
Jackson, you just said the national champ. That's my point exactly. The national champion would have been denied into the playoffs because of a random loss in Iowa.
They were the fourth best team in the nation. They proved they were top four.
If they would have
majority of
the
people said Ohio State did not deserve to beat them.
If they would have beat them,
majority of the people.
That's not true. Mark May said Ohio State.
If they would have
majority.
No, not majority.
Yes, no, yes,
that's just blatantly not true.
Not,
go back to 2014 and watch the shows.
That is
everyone was saying after that performance should have been Ohio State over TCU. Everybody, with the exception of Mark May.
Blatantly wrong.
Kirktree himself, who's one of the biggest Ohio State haters.
Wrong.
Ohio State should be.
He went to Ohio State.
And he's one of the biggest Ohio State haters.
Ohio State.
Yeah, he's a joke. The
worst
captain in Ohio State football history. Absolute joke.
I also need to make a point that I forgot to make earlier about Jack saying players are going to leave early. So the players who are going to leave early are the top players, right? Which means they're making the top deals. These low major, mid-major players who don't have pro hopes, who are playing and then going to go take a job in the workforce, they don't care. They want to play as many games as possible because for them, this is the end. This is when the ball stops bouncing, stops rolling, whatever your analogy is, right? So if you are giving these top guys money, and then forget the money for a second, just think about the top 5 performances that you remember in college football. I guarantee at least 4, probably 5 out of 5 were all in the national title game. It's legacy time. It's the big boy time. It's what you remember. No one remembers Braxton Miller's performance in the Sugar Bowl, but everyone remembers Vince Young leading Texas down the field against USC in the national championship. No one remembers, I'll go back to my 2000 example, Miami absolutely destroying the Florida Gators. Like just waxing the floor. It was just a physical domination. But I'm sure most players, most people who watch that live remember the national championship big time performance. Same thing with Joe Burrow's 2-3 years ago. My point is players, they're wired when you're playing at that high of a level for legacy. I'm sorry, Carter. That's where I disagree. I'm sorry to say that, and I'm sorry to say I don't think players nowadays. That's blatantly wrong, man.
It's not blatantly wrong.
No, it is.
Players are sitting out of legacy games all the time now. I'm sorry, the Rose Bowl's still a legacy game. The Sugar Bowl's still a legacy game. The Peach Bowl's still a legacy game. And they're sitting out because they know they have millions of dollars on the table. I'm sorry. If they really cared about legacy, if they really cared about playing, they'd play one more game with their boys before they never get to play for their school again. They would. I'm sorry, Carter.
You know what the Rose Bowl's like now?
The landscape is so different now that money is actually a factor when it comes into this. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it's true. And it sucks that it's true, but it's true.
Because yes, but you know what the Rose Bowl's like? It's like if the loser it's like if the loser of the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference finals played in a third place game. That's what it's like. You don't know why players don't care. Will LeBron play in that game? Does Kevin Durant, does Steph Curry, whoever your favorite player is, do they care about a third place game? No, they don't.
The Rose Bowl's not a third place game. The Rose Bowl is the greatest bowl game probably in the history of sports.
No, it's a third place game when it has nothing to do
with
it.
It's not the third place game.
Yes, it is.
A third place game is absolutely shameful. It's one of the biggest honors you could get in college football.
I'm sorry.
So for you to say that,
no one in 25 years will remember Dwayne Haskins leading Ohio State past Washington in the Rose Bowl for nothing. For nothing. That's the point. That's how players are thinking.
The point is every Ohio State fan remembers that game. And every fan of any team that's ever won a Rose Bowl, they all remember winning the damn Rose Bowl.
Nope. No one in 25 years will remember Dwayne Haskins remembering that.
Tell me one Ohio State fan that's going to forget the last Rose Bowl that just happened. Maybe the greatest offensive performance I've ever seen in my entire life as a college football fan. No Buckeye's going to forget that. Hell, most Utah.
Yes, okay, that's fine. Ohio State fan, but what is college football?
The rest of their games made to a bowl game. So yes, it does. Can't happen.
But what is
Oregon won the Rose Bowl? When Oregon won the Rose Bowl, all their fans are going to remember when Wisconsin when they won the Rose Bowl, all their fans remembered when Michigan State won that improbable run and beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship to knock the Buckeyes out of title contention. And they went to the Rose Bowl and won. No Sparty fan forgets that. Not a single one. It matters. You think Michigan State fans, because they played in the Peach Bowl? Hold on, Carter.
My point is,
no. Your point's flawed. You think Michigan State fans this year, you think they're upset that they won the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl? You think they're upset about that? I mean, they were. I mean,
do you think they care? That's my point. What are you going to remember? Are you going to remember Georgia? Are you going to remember Georgia going out in the field, absolutely shutting down Michigan's run attack that just destroyed Ohio State the week before, and then going out and putting the clamps on what was supposed to be the best offense in the nation? Or are you going to remember Ohio State's performance more? We're going to remember Georgia, whether you like it or not. That's how we're going to view college football.
I don't think anyone's going to remember that semifinal game between Georgia and Michigan because it was one of the most boring semifinal games we've ever seen. The Ohio State Utah Rose Bowl. That's got to be the one of maybe the best Rose Bowls ever played. I'm sorry, Jackson, but now that's ridiculous. No, who the hell is going to remember Georgia? Michigan? That was like Alabama.
Any playoff game is going to top like a different bowl.
I disagree.
No, you can't.
Can you tell me a starter in the Alabama-Washington playoff game? Could you? Like off the top of your head, could somebody start in the Alabama-Washington football game? Probably not.
We're talking about the national championship.
No, you were just talking about a semi-final.
But still the semi-final.
Right.
You're one step away from the final.
No one's going to remember.
The Rose Bowl in the playoff? That's wonderful. That's it all comes together. It's the peak of the mountain when you get the Rose Bowl in the playoff. But if I would rather watch the Rose Bowl, that's not a playoff game, or watch the Peach Bowl between a Peach Bowl semifinal, much rather watch the Peach Bowl.
I don't disagree, but a lot of these 1-4s, they're really forgettable. Tell me one person that scored in the Alabama-Washington semifinal game. You can't. Tell me. I mean, honestly, tell me someone that scored in the Michigan-Georgia bowl game. You probably can't.
We're talking about the legacy of the national championship game. That is what every player is chasing, to play for a national championship. This is the mountain. This is the mountain. Every team starts here, and they're going.
The mountain, and the goal is to go up here and get yourself $100 million.
Jackson,
no.
Hold on, Carter. I got a question.
No.
Hold on, Carter. I have a question for Jackson. So we have a player here. Okay, we'll call him Ronald. Okay. Let's say there's two situations. For Ronald. We have a Rose Bowl. That's a semifinal game. Sorry, quarterfinals. We're doing 8 teams now.
Ooh.
A Rose Bowl in the quarterfinal. All right, he's going to play in it because he still has a chance at the national championship game.
Okay.
Or a Rose Bowl with no final implications. Do you think Ronald may sit out?
Where's Ronald projected to go in the draft?
Huh?
Where's he projected to go in the draft?
Top 5.
Yeah.
I don't think he plays either.
See, that right there is where we're never going to agree. That's just wrong. That's just wrong.
I don't think it is.
You don't think if we told you tell Aiden Hutchinson we need to play one more game to win the national championship, he wouldn't do it.
I don't think if he's the number 1 pick, I don't think he does. If you're starting this, I'm saying beforehand. So you got to go.
He's not going to play one extra game to win a national title. Win a natty.
If he's the projected,
one more game.
If he's a top
more game.
No, because you're not saying he's number 1 there. You're saying top 5 before the playoffs begin. I have a hard time thinking he's passing up $40 million.
He's not.
He is.
That's only if he gets hurt, which is like a 0.5 chance.
Having a Matt Corral, he was one of the only players that didn't sit in the bowl game. He played. He got hurt.
Bowl game. Not.
Right, but you say everyone sits out of the bowl games. Matt Corral stayed and played in his bowl game and got hurt.
A lot of players sit out of bowl games. Yes.
Right, and he was the one that stayed in.
And
he got hurt.
Will they sit out in a playoff game? No.
They might.
No.
I'm sorry.
Name one player that has sit out in a playoff game.
99% won't.
That's where we disagree. If they got millions of dollars on line.
Look, Jackson, this scenario's existed for 10 years. Why does it only now matter? If they're late first round or higher, I guarantee you they play.
Name one.
If you're a top projected pick.
You tell me.
I have a tough time believing they play.
Name one lottery
at
pick.
Alabama, who's number 1, he's going to get drafted number 1, is going to sit out of the playoff.
for millions of dollars, he might.
Jake, just use
No,
He might.
he won't.
He might.
name one lottery pick that is sat out of the playoffs.
Carter, because it's only been 2 games.
How
Okay.
is that adding?
Wait, Jake.
It's gonna make
Jake,
such
Jake,
a significant
Jake.
difference.
So adding 0 games to the length of their season and giving them an extra chance.
Carter,
No. I want you to listen and giving them
You don't
an extra
understand
chance.
no, because every time you say that, you don't understand my point. Carter, you're not a projected top 5 pick 4 games into the year. You are with 4 games left in the year. Okay, even if the schedule is the exact same, you're saying now you got to go play 2 or 3 more games, even though you're already locked in the top 5 pick.
Who's the first round pick? Who's the first round pick in the draft this year?
Trayvon Walker?
Was he a projected top 5 pick going in the playoffs?
No.
Then how did he perform in the playoffs?
The exact
Really freaking good.
No.
And then when did he get drafted?
That's not true.
Number 1.
That's not true. Okay, blatantly false. Blatantly false.
It's not false.
Trayvon Walker got drafted because of his combine. He got drafted because of his combine. He's one of the best combines of all time.
How did he perform against the best teams in that playoff? You don't think
He was
zero
He was
effect?
okay.
That had 0 effect.
Trayvon Walker was,
How he performed
Trayvon
against
Walker was
the
nothing
best
special in the
competition
playoffs.
he played.
He didn't
Had
play
no
great
effect.
in the playoffs. Trayvon Walker did not have a great playoff run. He did not have a dominant playoff run at all. Trayvon Walker is simply the number 1 pick because of his combine.
Only because of his combine, not because anything at all. Not because of how he
projected
performed
around
against
14,
the best
15.
team
you
when
could
it
say that.
mattered the most.
He was
But-
a mid first round pick before his
What about
time.
Zeke?
No
What
one
about
had him.
Zeke?
The highest
Bring it to
drafted
that
running back. The highest drafted running back in what was it? 20 years when he was drafted. He doesn't. He
Don't
doesn't.
think he
Get,
gets that run.
he doesn't get. He doesn't get top 5 if he doesn't put on that
I
performance
don't.
in the playoffs.
I don't. No. Now that I don't disagree with that, but Zeke was a projected late first round pick before the playoffs. Late first round. I'm saying if you're like a top 10, top 5 projected pick beforehand, Zeke was late first round before those runs.
Okay, so you're basically saying the top only for the top 10 players.
Yeah.
Majority of those top 10 players are either going to go Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia.
Right.
You really think they're not going to play for Ryan Day, Saban, or Kirby
I think
in the playoffs?
I think in the way
Really?
college football is
Really?
trending. I think in the
Really?
way, I think in the,
Especially with the money that they're getting from that college.
they're
Really?
not getting money from that college.
And I know. It's basically money from the college.
But that's fine. But
Through a middle.
Bryce Young's got the highest NIL deal, and it's only $1 million. You can get $39 million at the first pick of the draft. So I think
Legacy matters,
look,
man. I'm telling you, bro. They
Yeah,
play
and
for
money
the game.
money matters more. I'm
They
sorry.
play for the game.
sorry.
No.
Legacy doesn't have a price tag.
But for a national title, these players will compete for that. They will.
will.
I don't.
Their
Right.
whole point
They're
of
not
going to
competing
Alabama.
for money though.
That's at the end of the day, these players are still money will always it's going to have a more and more and more of an impact, which is a really awful thing for college football.
Completely
I think we
agree.
can all agree on
And
that.
I think on top of that,
But still,
college-
these players at the end of the day are athletes. And they go into Alabama, yes, to make some money and get drafted, but to win a national championship.
I don't
And to
disagree.
be a national
But I
champion.
think if you're
That's
sitting,
something that
I
money
think-
can't replace.
I
being
think
part
if
of
you're a projected
national
top 10
champion.
pick, if you're projected top 10 pick, and you came out of the slums, you came out with absolutely nothing, and now you got an agent, and your agent's telling you in front of your family, kid, if you don't play these next 3 games, you're guaranteed $40 million, and you can retire your mom and dad. Kids are going to stop playing. Don't play. Don't take their $40 million.
It's like, why has this not been happening in the
It's been
past
2
10
games.
years?
It's been 2 games, and the college football
You-
landscape isn't the way it's trending
This
right now.
is where we keep going across. You
The
think
college football
by
landscape-
adding only one more singular game,
It
it's going to
affects it.
cost.
It's
No!
not even. It's not even adding a game. It's not even adding a game to the season.
Okay, respectfully, you're an absolute moron for that because you don't understand what I'm saying. I understand it's not adding games, but Carter, in the beginning of the year, you don't know where you're getting drafted.
Okay.
At the end of the year,
I'm so tired of that excuse.
The
Okay,
extra games
let-
means absolutely nothing. That is the same amount. It means absolutely
but if you
nothing.
take out the beginning, the games at the beginning of the season that are non-conference, everything just slides down.
I understand that, and by the time you're down there,
Carter, he's just saying by the time these players realize they're going to be a top 10 pick, then you're adding games.
Okay, so do players realize they're going to be a top 10 pick by who did Ohio State play before Michigan this year?
Michigan State.
So do they realize they're going to be a top 10 pick before Michigan State? Is that set in stone?
They know probably what round, but not where. Like not where in the round.
Because that's what everything slides down to. That's how it slides. Does that make sense? You remove those non-conference games and everything would slide. The Michigan State would become your conference championship that same week, in the season would be the conference championship, and then you play 3 playoff games.
What's he saying? I don't think
I lost you.
Do you get what I'm saying, Jake?
Yeah, we have to repeat that.
Okay.
No one in the world gets what you're saying right now.
You play week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8. We'll just say it's an 8-week season. No, we'll say it's a 5-week season. Make it simpler for you. Okay.
A 5-week season?
Just listen. Okay. 5-week season.
When Carter lands.
5-week season, right? You have your Big Ten championship is in your 3rd week, correct? Just in this non-on land. If you take out the non-conference game, which is week 1, all the games slide. So your conference game is week 1, your Big Ten is week 2, then you have your playoff games. So everything is happening earlier.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. If you're
No,
taking
it's
up
not.
non-conference.
Oh,
I don't think you understand.
no, he's just saying the games we played earlier.
Yeah,
Yes,
that means absolutely nothing. Hard because they're still playing.
But you
they're
just said the
playing
early
an
games
extra
matter.
game. No, because they're playing an extra game when they know when they're going to get drafted. You're adding an extra game to where they're going to be drafted.
No, they don't know it yet if they're playing less games, Jack. What do you not understand? Why do they know they're going to be drafted? Because they've already played 10 games before the playoffs, right?
Carter,
if they're only playing, if you're
playing, sliding the games back, it's still the same ratio regardless. That doesn't change.
Nope. If it takes them 10 games, to know when they're drafted if it takes 10 games before they play the playoffs, right?
Okay.
This way it would only
Carter's
be 8 games.
in the brain. Okay. So basically what Carter's saying, let's say what they do now. You play 12 weeks. So you play 12 games.
Conference championship week 13?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're saying it takes them 10 weeks to realize where they're going to be.
It's usually conference championship.
Let's just say 12. Let's say it takes the full season. The full regular season.
Full regular season.
It takes 12. Right. Now, in our little timeline, you remove those 2 games. So it's just a 10-week season.
Right.
But you still need 12 to realize what draft pick you are. So though part of the 12 would be the conference championship and the playoff game, is what Carter's trying to say.
Okay. No, that's fine. I get that, but I don't think it matters.
You explained that. I don't think it matters than I did.
No, that was really well done. That was really well done. No, but Carter, I don't think it matters because it's still kind of the same timeline. You still
man.
3 playoffs. You're going to know we're going to get drafted.
I think.
Look, respectfully, you're not going to change my mind on that.
I don't know.
And I hate to say it because I do think I wish every player would play for I wish we'd have to have these problems. But I think going down the line, when you're going to have agents at your door saying, "Hey, you don't play and you get $40 million," that's really hard for a 21-year-old kid to say, "I'm good." To $40 million, I think that's tough.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're gonna wrap it up here. We kind of went everywhere. It started as a realignment episode, and then we just stuck with the playoff the past 40 minutes. But we'll take it. It's fun to talk about college football. Just warning, you may see this setup for the next,
4 years.
4 years. But I think we'll get used to it. We'll get better. We'll improve. I think get a little pause in the middle. But I think we got through it. Also, make sure to check out our YouTube, TikTok, the Twitter page now, Pod Frenemies,
yes,
the Instagram. Check it all out. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you later.